Good evening, members. Welcome along to this evening's Cabinet meeting. We have 11 or 12 items, I should say, on our agenda for tonight. Welcome to our officers, and can I begin also by extending a very warm welcome to our new Chief Executive, Gary Jones, who is here for his first Cabinet meeting this evening. As I'm sure members know, we have a supplementary report tonight that we are going to be debating, and I'm going to bring that at the end of the meeting this evening. So that will be after the data quality policy that we will be debating. First up, are there any apologies for absence? No, we are expecting Councillor McGarren. He's just running a little bit late. So declarations of interest. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two items. One, obviously, being a member of Essex County Council, and the second one with relation to the draft budget report. I'm Chairman of the Great Missley Hall.
Thank you. Any other member? No, thank you very much. The minutes, agenda item 3 of the previous meeting held on the 9th of December. Are there any matters arising from the minutes? In which case we will take a vote on them being a true record. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you. The next item is the Cabinet Work Programme. Any member wish to add any item? Say that again? Oh, sorry, yeah. Agenda item 4 is the Cabinet Member Decision Records. These are on pages 19 to 24 of the agenda. This also was debated or was sent to full council for consideration a couple of weeks ago. Does any member have any item or any matters of interest that they wish to raise on the CMDRs? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There were those who said we couldn't do it when we set annual council. Positive measures to actually take steps to address the costs and the lack of decent affordable housing, well, there it is in those CMDRs. And shortly people will be getting sets of keys to a place which will be like a flat with their own kitchen and bathroom and living in the best possible way possible. And it will be a hell of a lot cheaper to the hard-pressed taxpayer of Basildon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I would agree with that. Any other members on the CMDRs? No. Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 5 is the Cabinet Work Programme. Does any member have anything they wish to add? No. Okay, thank you. Updates from Cabinet members. Does any member wish to provide a verbal update to the Cabinet? Again, we've had full council, so there's been a fair few announcements made. I will give you a minute, Councillor. This is going to be a filibuster as we talk now about. What should we talk about? For 30 seconds. Huh? Well, we could talk about the bins, couldn't we? But I think Councillor McGarren, the king of the bins, might have something to say about them in a moment. He's almost there. He's almost ready. The anticipation now. This better be good. This update better be good.
Like the first half of the Everton Spurs game.
Very good. Okay, all right. So we'll wait for Councillor McGarren. There you go. Very good. Notes prepared. Councillor McGarren.
Thank you. Oh, don't stand up on this one, do I? No. Sorry. Get carried away again. Sorry. I'm delighted to announce tonight, subject to the budget being agreed at full council next month, we will be returning to weekly black bin waste collection from the week beginning April 28th. Did you like my delayed dramatic entrance there? Just build the job. Yeah, okay, yeah. Don't worry, I'll mention it again. But we will be going back to weekly black bin waste collections for the week beginning April the 28th. In just under a year, we've made this happen despite being told it wouldn't or couldn't be done. We don't listen to wouldn'ts and couldn'ts. We listened to the residents, we consulted, we acted on that consultation, and now we are delivering on it. Just to be clear, we will also be distributing single-use blue and white bags to households and scrapping the not fit for purpose, dare I say it, rubbish blue and white sacks, which will be collected from households. And more information to follow on that. This new system will also be introduced from the week beginning April the 28th. As well as the bags that will be delivered to you, additional rolls will be available from our libraries free of charge. And there's more. During this time, we have brought back the Popular Crunch service, and I'm pleased to confirm we will be visiting each of the area committees in the next month to seek their participation in a number of dates over the next year. To be decided, but I think you'll be, even Kerry Smith, Councillor Kerry Smith, might be happy about it. Might, yeah. This is a significant investment against the challenging economic background we inherited. But the people told us how much this mattered to them, and the King of the Bins listened to his people. Not getting megalomaniac or anything else at all there. That's Gavin's job. I will be keeping residents updated as we approach the change of service in April, and I really must thank James Hendry and his team. This has been done, you know, let's not mess about here. This has been done as quickly as it possibly could, whilst following correct procedures and doing everything right. I remember we effectively lost a couple of months due to the general election period. So, you know, anyone on Facebook or other social media going, why hasn't it happened? What are you doing? You've got your feet up. No, we didn't have our feet up. James Hendry and his team have worked relentlessly to get this delivered. We said we'd fix the bins. In just a few months, the bins will be fixed. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor McGarren. Any other member with an update? No. In which case, we'll go on to agenda item 7, which is the draft budget, and this is on pages 27 to 169. Members, this is open for debate. I will just very briefly mention some of the highlights. We are bringing the budget back to the next meeting of the Cabinet before the full Council on the 13th as well, because there are still a few bits and pieces that are outstanding. For example, just yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, the government announced further funding for homelessness. So we have a further grant and additional money coming into the Council, which obviously this budget doesn't reflect, but as we move towards the 13th of February, things like that will start to be reflected in it. The main event, which Councillor McGarren has alluded to, is that the biggest investment that we are making in this budget is the £1.9 million to return the Council to weekly black bin collections and to sort out what is currently a £2.3 million overspent service where people are paying more and getting less of a service. So we are fixing the anomalies in the waste service that this council currently operates. In the HRA, that is also here for members to look at and comment on. And again, within this, we are changing some of the capital works to reflect a further £16 million investment in our repairs and maintenance of the council properties, as well as also ensuring that we are investing a further £16 million into the building of more council housing. The MTFS will show that we're on course across the HRA build programme, but also with our partners at Sempra and in the affordable housing to deliver a further 300 new council homes over the next 5 years to help with the waiting list. And that is a minimum. As we see the planning applications going through with 50% affordable, we should see even more of our council tenants on our waiting list able to access the housing that they need. Members can see it is a difficult financial situation that the council faced, but we are grateful to the government for some of the very good things that they have done. Almost more than £3 million of grant money has come into the council this year, additional money to help with the pressures that we are seeing in things like temporary accommodation, which we have discussed at length here at Cabinet in the past. As I said, we have another round of this to do at the 4th of February Cabinet meeting, and then this will go to full council on the 13th. So I'm not planning to go any further now unless any members have any comments that they wish to make at this moment in time. In which case I'll ask if the two opposition leaders have any comments they wish to make at this point. Councillor Baggott.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Not comments as such, just a couple of questions of clarification from officers probably. Would you like me to take them one at a time or give you a question dump?
Sorry, Sally.
Would you like me to give you them one at a time or do a question dump? Okay. First of all, there's £2.24 million of savings we found in operations, but how will they actually be made? How will the 909,000 budget shortfall be addressed? The Cabinet member savings include £250,000 from accessing the community wardens. How does that fit in with the key area of focus of community safety? Burial fees are being increased by 5%, so this really does come across as people can't even die in Basildon without escaping the costs they're having imposed on them. And the 1.7 million that is expected to be received from the extended producer responsibility scheme is contingent on satisfactory performance regarding recycling. If the administration's new rubbish collection policy reduces recycling rates, as it's expected to, what will happen to that funding? That's my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the questions that you've asked then, so 2.2 million in operations, so that is a mixture of things. We're debating later on this evening the AI strategy, we're debating the data and digital strategy. So the council is targeting a £1.2 million saving in transformation over the course of the next couple of years as well. So that is baked into what we're doing there. We've also got, you're talking about a £900,000 shortfall. Again, that will actually be less by the time we get round to the 13th of February because of the things that are still coming out in the wash. But what I would say is that in each of the last 3 years for which Councillor Baggott was the leader of the council has used reserves to smooth the budget. So it is not an unusual position for the council to take. And in fact, the 850,000 reserve position that we may end up with come the 13th of February will actually be less than has been used in previous years. On the issue of the community wardens, what we have to evaluate is whether or not £250,000 is value for money. As somebody who represents the St Martin's ward, I can tell you that I do not believe that what we are currently seeing with the community safety wardens reflects value for money. That is certainly not reflective in the conversations that I'm having with residents in the town centre. I don't think it's reflective of what Wickford councillors would say that they are seeing in their town centre at this moment in time. And when we think about some of the serious incidents that we've had in our town centre over the course of the last 12 months, we have to reflect on whether or not what started out under the previous Alliance administration in 2021 around the community safety wardens is actually being delivered now. What I would say is that although it is presented as a £250,000 saving, we have invested around about £190,000 already this year in additional safety measures in the town centre, including new lighting and wayfinding, which is being installed as we speak. And we are, I think Councillor McGeorge announced at the last full council, we are bringing together a community safety summit on the 12th of February to look at what we can do to get other people to put their hands in their pockets and help us to invest in the safety and security because of our town centre. Because for our businesses as well, it is in their interest for our town centre to be safe and secure, and therefore I don't believe it should just fall on Basildon Council taxpayers to be funding that security and that safety. We have a bit of a hodgepodge at the moment of different security firms doing different things all around our town centres. My view is that we should have something that is far more joined up than we currently do at the moment. Similarly, one of the other great initiatives from the previous Alliance administration in 2021 was the creation of the bids. And the Wickford and the Billericay bids are now up and running. They're out, I think, to recruitment for bid managers at the moment. And one of the things that we'll be looking to work with the bids on is around how we can be investing in more community safety measures. I think there's a debate that is happening at the Wickford Parish Council, the Wickford Town Council, regarding wardens in the town as well. And that is something that we want to work through the local council liaison group with them to look at what we can do. My ambition is that actually that 250,000 is a minimum amount that ends up being invested in security and community safety around our public spaces and our town centres. I don't believe it should all fall on the taxpayer to fund that. And that's why I think it's about time we started having some of those conversations, whilst at the same time continuing to invest that money in other areas as we have done already. Fees and charges are rising, and that is a reality. That's a reality that we don't like to raise fees and charges. We don't like to raise the council tax, but we have to be cognizant of the inheritance that this administration walked into. A £2.3 million overspend. We've brought that down. It was £2.9 million earlier on in this financial year, and we've worked hard to make some of the changes already to bring it down to 2.3 million. But that is a gap that needs filling, and unfortunately we have got our hands tied behind our backs because of changes that the previous government made around commercial deals that councils were able to enter into. You can remember back in 2021 when I last was the cabinet member responsible for finance looking at a budget, and we were able to generate commercial revenue to the tune of 10% of the general fund budget. That meant that we could freeze the council tax and that we didn't need to bring the council tax or raise the council tax threshold. The government has restricted what councils can do because of councils like Thurrock and others that went on spending sprees on solar farms. So because of that, the revenue raising power of the council is limited at this moment in time with only 9 months of being in administration. I will keep my powder dry on other revenue raising measures that will be announced on the 13th of February, but I am confident that when we sit here in 12 months' time, we will be looking at a far healthier income generation rather than this all just being about cuts to services. On the 1.7 million EPR funding around recycling, it is our target to continue recycling at those rates. I think it is, if I'm honest, when we've looked at this at Cabinet in the past, I think it is a little bit of a misnomer to suggest that recycling rates have only just got good because we've introduced a really poor waste service. I don't think that's true. If you compare the recycling rates to, say, 2012, actually they're at a pretty similar level, and that was with the pink sacks before. We're still asking people to separate their recycling. We're just making it simpler and easier for both the residents to do their recycling and for our crews to collect the recycling as well. So I'm confident that on that we will have some strong statistics, but as always with these things, we will keep that under review. Mr. Sparks, have I missed anything? Probably loads. Correct answer. Members, or Councillor Brockman, do you have any questions at this point? Okay. Any member of the committee? Councillor Smith?
If you would forgive me for seeming rude, which is not my intention, in your last point, you were talking about the recycling bags. I think it's fair to miss out. The refuse service that Councillor McGowan announced in his announcement is hygienic. Local authorities were formed originally to protect the public health. Fortnightly bin collections is just plain disgusting in the height for summer. And those recycling bags, as I call them, pathogen bags, are public health hazard, which the previous administration never done any health impact assessments before they launched them.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. It will be interesting to see if there is an alternative budget presented at full council, and it will be even more interesting to see if it contains details of fortnightly black bin collections and no changes to a waste service that, as I say, is currently overspending to the tune of £2.3 million, and we've seen increases in fly tipping, dumping and all the rest of it. So that is going to be, I'm sure, debated at length on the 13th of February's full council meeting. Members, if there are no further questions or comments on the budget at this stage, we are asked to consider, comment and then endorse, so we do need to take a vote on this. The recommendations are on page 28 of the agenda. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That is unanimous. Agenda item 8 is the Activity Centre review, and this is Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Leader. It's a privilege to be able to present this report tonight and be the Cabinet member that is responsible for culture, sport and community and have responsibility for our activity centres across the borough. The first thing I want to place on record is my thanks to all the activity centres activity centre service committees for the invaluable job that they do, the time that they give voluntarily to perform their roles. And I'm incredibly proud of our commitment over many, many years to delivering activity centre services across the borough. As I said at the Overview and Scrutiny Commission meeting in November, when I speak about activity centres, I speak not just as a Cabinet member responsible for them, but I also speak as a community worker that delivers services in very similar environments to activity centres. And I also speak as a grandson who knows the difference that activity centres made to my grandmother's life during her latter years and the support network that provided my family at a time when we needed it most. Activity centres are far more than just places to go. They are also activities that really provide valuable services to residents and their families across the borough. And I want to place on record my thanks to all those members, to all the service staff and all the volunteers that support those activities being able to take place. Members will be aware that in April 2023, a review of the activity centre services was commissioned by my predecessor. I'd like to thank her for commissioning that review, and I'd like to thank all of the residents that completed that review. Over 600 people completed the evaluation, gave us their feedback into the services, their thoughts of things that are going particularly well, areas that they would like us to particularly develop. So that review was completed in April 2023. I came into post in May 2024, and as Councillor McGurran alluded earlier, we lost a period of time during that period due to the general election. But during my discussions with officers, when I was really able to get stuck into the role, as I say, I know the difference activity centres make. I looked at the services that we were able to provide, and the conversation that I had with officers at the time was around how do we make the activity centres sustainable? What are the challenges we're facing? As you alluded in the previous item, Mr. Leader, not just alluded, as you explained in the previous item, the financial challenges that the borough faces has meant that we have to look at different and alternative ways to be able to work more efficiently. So sustainability of the activity centre services was the first criteria and the first area to really focus on and to be able to look at, with the criteria that I set officers to be able to maintain services using the same locations, the same sites, the same delivery staff at the same cost, with the same membership structure that we are able to have and operate within. So that criteria was set out. 5 options were presented back to me as the Cabinet member responsible. One option that presented itself far greater to be able to, as an option to be able to look through, was the option to be able to bring the activity centre services in-house with full operational governance under the Council's responsibility. And I would like to point out that at this point, the Council invests significantly already into the activity centres, with £477,000 contributing towards the investment into the activity centre service provision, and approximately 11 staff that are working as Council employees already in delivering those services that residents enjoy. At the moment, the governance structure is that the committee services are managed by, with the operational governance sits with the 3 activity centre service committees, supported by the 11 staff that I've mentioned and the funding that the council provides. One option that presented itself to us was option 5, to be able to bring the services in-house, have the full operational governance under the responsibility of the council, with the full income from fees and membership charges coming into the council that would reduce the subsidy to the council. At the same time, while we would change the governance structure and sitting underneath the responsibility of the council, resident voice in shaping services was vital. So we would look at a different role for the service committees, with advisory committees that are being set up in each of the 3 locations. The 3 locations would not change. And those advisory committees would then be able to shape and inform services. At that point, we were able to progress with discussions. I met with each of the 3 different committees alongside officers during meetings taking place in the first week of December. The item was then brought forward to the Overview and Scrutiny Commission on the 12th of December, where the item was presented. It was then scrutinised during that meeting. Following that meeting, I then wrote a letter to all members of the Activity Centre Service Committees outlining the proposals that are being brought forward and making very, very clear, and I want to repeat tonight very, very clearly, the criteria that was set and the changes only being made on the basis of the same staff, the same locations, the same fees and charges, with the same delivery staff being made. So I wrote a letter to all members, all 1,700 members that took place. Some members, I'm aware, were not able to receive that letter and did not receive that letter. And subsequently to that, we have made that letter publicly available through each of the different locations that takes place. It was not by intention, just purely by design that took place. I received during the Christmas period some inquiries into the changes that were being proposed. And I want to thank all the members of the public that have been in touch with me to seek clarification on the changes that we're proposing. The questions were broken down into kind of core themes around whether we would still continue with these changes to be able to receive payments by cash, or whether we would be moving to online payments only. I give this absolute commitment that the changes being proposed would result in cash and bank transfer payments being taken. It would not be either or. Both options would still remain available for residents to be able to use. I also received some queries around the equipment that's already being used and whether the council would be gifted the equipment or whether any additional resources would need to be provided around the equipment. No activity centre would be forced to give the council any equipment with any of the changes that were being proposed in this particular option, and I reiterate that tonight. I was also asked some questions around particular staff and staffing of the activity centres. As I said in my opening speech, that the criteria being set was around use of the same staff. There was questions, particularly from the George Hode, relating to one particular staff member. I can't, for reasons that I know members will understand, get into a particular member of staff's employment status, but I've worked very, very hard with officers to be able to maintain that. I was then invited to attend a meeting at Langdon Community Centre on Monday. It was an incredibly well-attended meeting with lots of very passionate and very deep questions that members of the public were asking. And I want to thank all members of the public for giving me that opportunity to come along and address the questions and the concerns that they had. And I hope that I was able to answer those in as much detail as I was able to, and reiterate the points, the criteria, and the vision of activity centre services being able to continue, that all residents would not see a frontline change to any of the services that is being provided. Now, there were 5 options that were being proposed, and subsequently to that, and during conversations, I've received questions of clarification, ideas, initiatives to being able to come forward. And I think is at this point that what is right that we now take the step to do is be able to listen to ideas, initiatives, and look forward to activity centre services being able to continue. But it is right that we consider different options and alternative options coming forward to make sure that we get this decision as the right decision that we move forward with. So, Mr. Chairman, Leader, with your indulgence, I would like to formally move that we defer making a decision on the future of the activity centre services this evening to the March meeting on the 4th of March, giving us time to consider other options if they present themselves to make sure that we make the right decision that leads to a sustainable future for our services that our residents depend on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ferguson. There's an awful lot of work that yourself, Mr. Taylor, and the team have put into this, so we are grateful to you for that and for the engagement. I'm happy to defer and to continue dialogue and to continue consultation and discussion. I will just point out, in my role as Cabinet Member for Finance, that where we need to get to is a position that is universal across the 3. So we need to understand exactly what is going to happen. We cannot have a fragmented service, we cannot have a fragmented system. And if ultimately the position that we get to is that people do not want the council to be involved in this, then there will need to be a competitive legal process to look at how any of those services are moved into a new function. There will not be quid pro quos, there will not be jobs for the boys, there will be a proper process that will be put into place and a proper evaluation will have to be made. So I would ask officers to think that through as well before and we present that back to the committee on the 4th of March. Does any other member have anything that they wish to add to this item? In which case we will defer the decision on this to the 4th of March meeting. No. Councillor Baggott, do you wish to speak on this item?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I believe that Councillor Ferguson has got a good heart and is well-meaning, and I'm very, very glad to hear that he now wants to defer the decision that's being made. I think that when he started off with his intention, that he was looking at it through a certain filter, because, as the leaders quite rightfully said, this council has got some requirements to actually raise money. It needs to actually be bringing revenue streams in. And I think that the filter that was being used to make the decision as is was very much driven by that as opposed to the overall activity centres themselves. And if you are going to revisit it and defer, the issue that I have, and this is, I know what Councillor Ferguson is saying about his intention that nothing will change, everything will be the same, it'll be all run by the council and the activity centres will be advisory. But that is a bit of hope over experience to an extent, because my experience of the activity centres is they take great pride in the ownership and the feeling that they are adding something to their community. That's across the board. That's both at the George Hurd, that's at the Place, that's at the Langdon Centre. And when the council comes in, there has always been a bit of a distrust between the community and council, historically. And I'm not saying, and I know that we are building bridges and doing our best to actually eradicate that, but there is that element of distrust. So when a council officer comes in and an advisory committee is formed, so instead of now actually having the opinion to be the ability to be executive, they're now just advisory, there could be a feeling that they are somehow now less important, that their role is not really going to be listened to. And when the personalities come into play, as they do with activity centres and people that are passionate about the role they have, it sets the council up to fail to an extent, because you get a frisson between what the activity centres want and the council's obligation and council officers' obligation to the council. And the whole thing potentially can then become more of a bun fight, and we've seen this in the past historically with activity centres and other community groups across the borough, where there has become a confrontation approach between council officers and community, purely because of this conflict of values, if you like. So I'm hoping that when you have a look and defer this and have a look, that we can find a way whereby the activity centres can be shown to have value and not just be advisory, and something can be done to make them feel as empowered as I know all of us as members would want the community to be.
Thank you, Councillor Baggett. I think work can be done, looking at what model is right, and more work can be done, and we will come back on the 4th of March to have a look at it. Councillor Smith, last point on this item.
Thank you. Councillor Baggett, your mic's still on, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I know Councillor Baggett didn't serve on the Housing and Communities Committee that I chaired, but my colleague Councillor Ferguson was a member, and the reason I mention this, Councillor Baggett speaks of distrust between these groups and the council. I'm not going to look at other sides, I'm going to look at our record when we was in charge. And my colleague who's not here tonight, Councillor Mo Larkin, was telling me when the hot meal service was cut, I don't see that was done at a malicious part on the council side. This council was getting £25 million in grant. When Boy George Osborne does that with the tap, and we're getting running on fresh air pretty much as a council, and it's all other councils, I can see why the former leader Tony Ball stopped the mills at the George Hurd and the other pension activity centres. But my colleague Mo Larkin, we done this, and Councillor Ferguson was a good advocate of it, looked into it, had cross-party support, was restoring the hot mills at the George Hurd for a microwave system, and we've let that committee get on with it. We have given money to the three pensioner groups, clubs we're talking about tonight, so they felt best spent. So we have a record of having trust in them. But when you've inherited a car crash, we have got to fix everything, because local government reform is happening, and unfortunately cross-party councillors in Thurrock will be used to almost a decade of cutting and slashing because of the previous administration in Thurrock's utter incompetency and lack of oversight on officers' ability to spend £500,000 without speaking to a councillor. That's just poor management. So when we amalgamate the two councils, if this is what the government's decision, we need all of our services in a good place, because we will be working with new colleagues who are used to living sort of hand to mouth, slashing and burning. And when they look at our services and they look at what they've had, that's why it's important we give all of our services a strong financial base and a long-term plan, so when we amalgamate, they won't be looking to cannibalise us. They'll be going, well, this is what they've done in Basildon, This is what they can do in Tilbury and Grays and Corringham and Stamford La Hope. We should be the model, providing hope, but we have a good record on supporting our pensioners clubs. But it's not our fault we inherited a car crash.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Okay, so we've got a plan on the activity centres review, and we will add it to the work programme for the 4th of March. Agenda item 9 is the Resident Digital and Transformation Strategy. Councillor Yacoub.
Thank you. Tonight I bring forward our Resident Digital and Transformation Strategy, setting out our overarching approach to becoming a truly digital-first council. This strategy reflects a bold, clear vision that sets us apart from any other local authority. At its heart is a commitment to placing residents at the core of everything we do. When we talk about digitalisation, this is not about embracing technology for its own sake. It's about transforming the way we deliver services to make them more effective, more efficient and faster. At the centre of this transformation is empathy. This strategy allows us to better understand our residents' unique needs, personalise the services we provide, and meet people where they are. It's about using digital tools to serve and to innovate. When assessing what this strategy means for our borough, don't get bogged down in technicalities. Instead, take a moment to reflect on the vision behind it. A future where decisions are rooted in data, informed by a coherent understanding of our residents, and guided by a commitment to achieving better outcomes. Every decision we make as a council shapes the lives of our residents, but how often are those decisions truly backed by robust, comprehensive data? This strategy cements our ambition to becoming a data-driven council. From our spending priorities to essential services to resident signposting, we're committed to basing our actions on accurate, real-time insights that deliver real impact. We are presenting today a coherent, actionable strategy, and digital inclusion is at the heart of it so that no resident is left behind. We're leveraging AI to serve residents better, and we're embedding data into our decision-making like never before. A standout element of our journey has been our partnership with Microsoft. We're positioning ourselves to become one of the leading councils in the UK as a fully Microsoft-enabled organisation. We have also sought external validation for this strategy. HSO, who are part of Microsoft's inner circle of experts, have reviewed our plans. These are global experts who have worked across both the public and private sectors, and they have highlighted a key strength in our strategy: our vision. They've recognised that we're not simply chasing one-off AI projects or purchasing pre-built digital tools. Instead, we are embedding digitalisation, data and AI into our very infrastructure, creating a foundation for sustainable innovation and resident-centred growth. I'm incredibly proud of what we've achieved so far, and I would like to take a moment to thank Shanna and the whole team who have worked tirelessly over the past 6 months to develop this strategy. Their dedication and their expertise has been instrumental in bringing this strategy forward. This strategy has also undergone rigorous review, including being presented to the Policy Scrutiny Committee, ensuring that it's well considered and it's capable of delivering meaningful change for our residents. We have done the work to make this strategy sound and for it to make a real difference for our residents.
You caught me by surprise. Very good. Thought you were still going then. That was good. This is getting into it. Thank you, Councillor Yacoub. Does any opposition member at this point have any questions that they'd like to ask on this? Councillor Baggett.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I want to applaud Councillor Yacoub for the hard work that's gone into this. I know his hard work, and the same to the officers and Shanna. And I think actually as a strategy, it's really good. But I mean, Councillor Yacoub did worry me a bit. She said, don't get bogged down in the technicality. But data is technicality. And the better your data, you have garbage in, garbage out. If your data's no good, the results and everything that follows through aren't any good. It's a cautionary tale, but it's something I want to raise because it does concern me when we're actually going this route about what our checks and balances are. I had a conversation with the economic development team a couple of years ago, and they were saying how they'd noticed a very worrying trend in Billericay, that the one end of the high street was no longer being used. And they had concerns about therefore how Waitrose was going to survive because the footfall had dropped off. The shops at that end of the high street were likely to fail, and they needed to start putting it towards a strategy to understand why that was going on and what they were going to do to redress that particular balance within the high street. Because on the other end, all of a sudden, there was huge amounts of economic activity, but there wasn't, according to them, or footfall, but there wasn't the stores to support it. And when I asked them where they got the data from, they got the data from people's mobile phones and when they actually accessed the internet or not. But the problem with Ricky is you've got no service at one end of the high street right the way through to the other. So they were basing their data on a false premise. They were starting to put a plan of action into place to actually work on how to support companies and retail outlets that weren't failing, purely on the basis that the data they'd received was that people weren't using the mobile phones, therefore there was no footfall. So when we actually move on a strategy like this, we really have to be very critical and very analytical about the data we're getting, and we need to check it and check it and check it to make sure that we're not going down a completely wrong path based upon false data. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baggott. I'd like to have been in the room when that was being discussed, because I mean I would have pointed out in terms of footfall the giant thing at the one end of the high street called a train station, which would have been symptomatic as to why there was perhaps more footfall. I don't think that was a genius strategy that needed to be overly looked at. But anyway, I'm deferring. I could also say where was the strategy about a lack of footfall in Basildon Town Centre when all of the shops were closing there. But we will play nice this evening. We won't go there. We'll save all this up, I'm sure, for a later date. I would kick off from the members' point of view and say well done to Councillor Yaqub and to Shanna and all of the team for all of the hard work on this. The reason I created this cabinet portfolio stems from the last time I led the council during the COVID period, was seeing the transformation onto hybrid working happen within 7 days. So to go from a situation where everybody worked in the building and everybody had to sign everything off to being in a position where we signed off the budget and the accounts at the end of March 2020 on Teams or Zoom or whatever it was at the very beginning. And everybody, and it was a view that we didn't need to take 3 years to digitally transform. We took a week to do it. And yeah, okay, it took a pandemic, and let's hope that never happens again, to have to move us in that direction. But the art of the possible was met when it came to how quickly we digitally transformed there. And when I look at Basildon Council at the moment, and obviously, you know, we will be a bigger council in the not too distant future after local government reorganisation, I struggle here in terms of how we use data to inform decisions. As you know, we are setting a budget, and we've just debated the setting of a budget here. Part of that will be looking at the area committees and giving the area committees their funding for next year. But how much are the area committees actually looking at data when it is informing their decisions about money going out of the door? How are we actually tracking what the return on investment is for every penny and pound that leaves the door? Feels to me like we very much spend money on the same old without necessarily looking at it. And we just debated or we will debate in full, but we've just talked about the activity centre. And when we look at this, there's £500,000 of money near enough being spent on something that is for 1,700 people. So what could we do to be increasing the number of elderly people using those centres? Because there are more than 1,700 elderly people in the circumference of those 3 activity centres. But that doesn't ever appear to happen. And when I ask to look at dashboards around, so where are we overspending? What is the run rate at the moment on fly tipping or data? It exists on spreadsheets somewhere within the organisation, but it doesn't exist somewhere that as councillors or as directors we can go and tap into it. And we had an all-out election in May, and one of the most frequently asked questions of me as a group leader from my new members was, so where do we get the information about our ward? Where do we find out how many people live in our ward, what jobs they do, where they work, what the universal claimant benefit count is? Where do we find out that information? And it exists in Power BI and other areas, but there isn't that culture here of being able to tap into it and say, this is what we want to see, this is how it's going. And every cabinet member should be able to sit here and look at the spend in their service area, where it's going, how much needs to go out the door, and be identifying where we should be investing more money and where we should be targeting more money and where we're seeing particular issues. And although Councillor Yacoub is presenting this for us here tonight, I think one of the key areas that this will roll out into is housing. Because the biggest lever that we as a district council have at the moment on changing the outcomes and the lives of people in our borough is through our council housing stock. And we don't, I think, have anywhere near enough data on what is going on in our housing stock, both in the social sector but also in the private sector as well. So I think this is much needed. I think we'll move on to a next agenda item where it starts to then be being delivered with AI and how all of that starts to happen. But this should go at pace now. And by the end of 2025, the residents in our borough, I've said this to Councillor Yacoub, I've said this to officers since I've been back, we live in an Amazon generation. We live in a generation where people are expecting next day deliveries, and they expect to be able to use these to access services quickly and get answers quickly. And this all has to be about how do we get information, answers and services to people quicker. And I think that's what we're doing here, the first step, because we're very quickly going to be in a generation where it's same day delivery and where it's same hour delivery and wanting that instant answer. And we can't keep the antiquated processes of a 10-day turnaround for answers, and you have to ring a telephone line and stay on the line for 25 minutes before. People need to be able to use WhatsApp to get in touch with the council. If there's a missed bin collection, they need to be able to send a message quickly and know it's going to get dealt with. And so all of that channel shift that is part of the implementation of this strategy, I think, is going to be really, really important, and I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. Councillor Yacoub, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Baggott, for your questions. I wanted to just point out the angle that I meant when I talked about bogged down in technicalities is it's really important to remember why we're doing this. And I think sometimes when you talk about things like AI and you have these really technical terms, people forget what the outcome is, and it's always about putting residents first. But when it comes to having robust data, later on we'll be introducing our data quality policy. So we've really looked at this through an overarching perspective, because we understand there's a lot of layers to this and it's a huge transformation, but like you said, we've got to get it right. And so there's other projects that are going on in the background. So one of them is the ANS data review, which is funding that we actually secured from Microsoft, so it's not costing us anything, and they are doing a deep dive into our data and looking at where we're at with our data, how clean it is, and providing us with a business case and recommendations of what we can do about it. And then again, we'll be talking about the AI strategy coming up, but we're working with HSO, who are also essentially going through workshops with officers of the council, employees, and going, what do you spend your time on? What kind of repetitive tasks do you do? So all of this means that there's actually real work going on behind the scenes. It's not just a shiny document, and that's one thing we were really keen to make sure that this isn't just a shiny document we bring here and we forget about it. Like, that's happened so many times, but really there's tremendous amount of work going on in the background for it. And then when it comes to the Billericay High Street anecdote, I'd say the key thing that I'd learned from that is don't have one source of data, have more than one, and I think that's going to be kind of embedded in our approach moving forward.
That's a good answer. Any other member? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As always, we lead the pack. Councillor Yacoub has been on this case since late May. Someone just started on it on Monday with AI investment. It's the way forward. I am very low tech, but I can see the benefits straight off the bat. It goes down to little things. There could be a dog bin. My colleagues from Langdon Hill will testify there'll be a certain dog bin that gets more used than the others. All those sort of bins that are getting more used, it's cheaper for the taxpayer if in the middle of the week one crew just spends a couple of hours going to a dozen dog bins and waste bins across the borough. It keeps the areas looking tidy, and it keeps the residents doing the health and the safety thing to do by keeping dog fouling where it should be. So that's a positive step forward. Yes, it's going to be very big with housing. Not so long ago, there was some scaffolding put up near where I live. Roof's redone, and as I spoke to Jonathan Tizard, one of our officers, what a waste. We could have had a solar panel grant. And while that scaffolding was up, they could have done the roof and put up solar panels. But because we don't have that data, how do you plan for that work? Because when you've got a roof that has just been done, you know that will take solar panels. Whereas older roofs might not be able to take the weight of solar panels because the wood could be in a bad state. But it's all, as the leader says, data driven, and you need it there to plan ahead with housing repairs. By April, as I said, at full council, 8,000 out of the 12,000 homes will have this gadget on the boiler. So we will know the properties that aren't keeping the heat, got dampness problems. And rather than paying a team of people to sit through, flick the paper and go through it and sort it out. And just to conclude, if you cast back to these documentaries about the police dealing very serious cases in the 70s and 80s, you would see streams of police officers going through reams and reams of paper. Look how more efficient it is when the computer came out. So the police could put that fingerprint in or that tip off, confirm and look for another suspect. This is what it does for local government. It lets us know what we need to do and get it done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any other member? No, in which case the recommendation is on page 212. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 10 is the AI strategy. Councillor Yacoub.
Thank you. Imagine this. A stroke patient's life saved because AI pinpointed the exact location of a blood clot in seconds. Or a letter from a vulnerable person flagged as urgent by AI and brought to the top of the pile, saving them from despair. AI isn't a far-off dream. It's happening right now, transforming lives and showing us what's possible when we harness technology thoughtfully. We are seizing the moment and building a next-generation council, one that doesn't just deliver services, but does it strategically, creatively, and with unparalleled accessibility. We live in a Netflix, Amazon era, where people expect everything at their fingertips, whether it's ordering a takeaway or streaming a show. Why should local government be any different? Our vision is simple: smarter, fairer, and more connected services that meet our residents where they are. We believe that technology should amplify the human touch, not replace it. And that's exactly what our strategy delivers. AI will become an intrinsic part of all of our operations, helping us to predict homelessness spikes, flagging urgent issues in real time, and when we are a unitary authority, even detecting road damage before it causes disruptions. By harnessing AI and integrating it into our council, we are at the forefront of innovation. This strategy positions Basildon among the top 4% of councils nationally recognised as leaders in AI adoption. The government's AI Opportunities Action Plan could not have come at a better time for us, highlighting how our AI strategy aligns with and reflects national priorities. Its emphasis on delivering practical applications in critical areas such as data infrastructure, upskilling, and public sector AI adoption perfectly complements our vision of building a digitally advanced, data-driven, and AI-enabled council. A key highlight, once again, is our partnership with HSO, whose expertise will help us to identify and prioritise key use cases, the top 3 being in HR, housing, and customer services. We will be streamlining back-office processes and improving customer-facing interactions, For example, AI will enable us to provide residents with real-time updates on service requests and optimize internal workflows so our staff can focus on the high-priority issues. This AI strategy is just the beginning, and over the coming months, we will provide updates on our collaboration with HSO and the progress of our AI readiness project. We will share the successes we've achieved, and we will present a compelling business case that will demonstrate the return on investment from this work. Once again, I would like to extend my thanks to Shanna and the entire team who have done a remarkable work in bringing this AI strategy to life.
Thank you, Councillor Yacoub. Realise I said everything in the last one that I'm going to say about this. Anyone have any other points? Councillor Baggett, go on then.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the fact of the matter is, whether you like AI or not, it's here to stay, and it is something that is not just a national thing, but it's a global issue. And I don't think there's anybody that would have the chutzpah to be arrogant enough to say they are experts in AI to the extent that they know the ramifications of how this is going to actually manifest and roll out going forwards. So I, not being an expert, did a cursory examination of one particular aspect of AI by people that are market leaders in advising in the areas of governance. And the key points that I picked up were that, according to one expert, to effectively govern AI and mitigate the risks to different populations, organisations must establish diverse AI governance committees to establish policies, define risk levels and organisational risk posture, evaluate use cases and ensure human involvement for high-risk processes. The LGA says councils must be mindful of the risks and challenges associated with safe and responsible AI adoption, including ensuring the data foundations are strong, addressing privacy and data protection, how to address the needs of digitally excluded residents and staff, how to mitigate bias and alleviate concerns regarding job displacement. And I know that the LGA has an AI network, and I'm hoping that Basildon have joined that. I mean, we pay our fees to the LGA, I believe. I don't see why we shouldn't be getting our money's worth from that. But the point I want to get to is strategy isn't a policy. I know there's always been confusion within the council as to strategies and policies. I think this is a great strategy. Again, I would applaud both Councillor Yacoub and Shanna for putting the strategy together. But what is needed is some form of formal council AI policy and the governance protocols that are attached to it with regards to who reports to whom with regards to governance. How are decisions actually re-evaluated? How do you ensure the probity of the AI and all the checks and balances I just referred to? So all I'm asking for at this point is some form of assurance that moving beyond the strategy, we will at some point, sooner rather than later, see that policy come forward. And if we are at the 4% of the councils nationally on this sort of line of work, it's actually incumbent upon us to make sure that we are leaders in that regard as well, in ensuring we have a fit-for-purpose policy to ensure that our AI strategy is supported and works for residents and staff.
Thank you, Councillor Baggett. Councillor Yacoub.
Thank you, Councillor Baggett. If you refer to page 254, you will find in there information around governance and oversight and data privacy. If you go through the AI strategy, you will see that there has been references made to the idea of anonymizing data to ensure that, again, when we use AI, we do so ethically. There has been references to the ethical use of AI in general. And also, we have, in the strategy itself, we have put in rules around making sure that human bias is looked at. And we've provided guidance to our officers on how we use AI moving forward to ensure that all of those regulations and all of those standards are met. From where I'm sitting, this is a very comprehensive strategy, And I've been very keen to make sure that it isn't just high level. It demonstrates how we're currently using AI, how we want to use AI in the future, and all the regulations behind it. And it's to the point where we have other councils actually going, oh, what are you doing with AI? We want to know what you're doing, and we want to know what kind of initiatives you're adopting, because it's really exciting and we want to learn from you. And very soon we will be in a position where we would even be able to offer shared services because of the work that we're doing. If there is anything I've missed, I'll invite Shanna to come in, but...
Okay, thank you. Any other member? Councillor Mitchell, sorry.
Thank you. I'm still a little bit behind on AI. I see AI and I think of the little robot that led the other robots astray not too long ago, and ChatGPT. That's about as good as I get with it. But this strategy is going to be so amazing for our council to be able to tie all of our services together. With housing, you can link in if they have issues with the police, with the NHS. It's going to be able to bring all the services tied together to make our members' lives easier, to make our council officers' lives easier, and to make our residents, when they're searching for things, even to be able to go onto a website and rather than going through all the pages trying to find where you need to be, you'd literally be able to type into a box, I need to do X, and it will say, go here. It's literally bringing our council straight into the future, and it's exactly where we need to be.
Thank you, Councillor McGeorge. From my point of view, I think I'd agree with what has been said by the Cabinet this evening. I think one of the things that we need to be thinking about with AI is around the predictive analytics side of AI. So obviously, as we move into a unitary authority and we take on more responsibility around adults and children's, being able to predict the spend, the demographics, the demand on services, that is going to be critical. But equally, I think we need to be looking at some of the other stuff as well around, with a major issue in this borough at the moment about kids dropping off out of school. And we were just, Councillor McGarren, Yakub and I were at a school just this week talking to the head teacher about people that are homeschooling and disappearing off of the curriculum and off of the radar. In 5 to 10 years' time, that is going to really manifest itself in issues and problems. And we need AI to be able to pick up some of those trends, pick up some of those issues around where people are going. Obviously, people can legitimately homeschool their children, that's fine, but what we're seeing is a growing trend at a rapid rate, and we need to make sure that those checks and balances on that is being properly looked into, which I'm not convinced at the moment that is actually happening. And AI will help us with some of that, but it'll also help us in terms of identifying the businesses that we want. And by adopting this and doing this, we've got the Creative Tech Festival coming up next month. We're already a leader in terms of tech businesses and the advanced manufacturing sector, but obviously, hopefully now people will start to see Basildon as a place to come for AI. And who knows, we may even get some new tech bros into Basildon that can influence our elections. So that would be fun. Anyone else have any points on this? In which case, the recommendation is on page 240. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Agenda item 11 is the data quality policy. You're earning your keep this evening, Marianne. This is you, Councillor Yakub.
Yeah, it's me again. Item 11 introduces our data quality policy. High quality and consistent data is essential for making informed decisions. Without it, even the most ambitious initiatives will fall short. This policy sets out clear standards for capturing, managing, and verifying data, ensuring that our services remain reliable and resident-focused. We aim to extend these data quality standards to our external partners, such as, for example, Morgan Sindall, who look after our council housing stock. By holding partners to these principles, we can more effectively address ongoing issues, such as those in our housing repair service. Accessing rich data will enable us to pinpoint problems swiftly, prioritise solutions, and ultimately deliver a higher standard of service for our residents. As I conclude on this tonight, I'd leave you with this. Think of our resident and digital transformation strategy as our overarching roadmap, the AI strategy as the exciting engine driving modernisation, and our data quality policy as the fuel ensuring that everything runs smoothly. Each part reinforces the others, creating a future-ready council that puts residents first.
Very good. Councillor Brockman.
I wasn't actually going to speak tonight, but I've got to say thank you, Mariam. It's been very good. It's really informative. However, what I'm frightened of is people's information, you know, the GDPR thing and everything. So I'd like to see more information about how we're going to protect people's information and records, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Don't be scared. Don't be frightened. It will be fine. We will alleviate your fears right now. Councillor Yacoub.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key things that we're using data for, as Councillor Callaghan said, is detecting like patterns. And so part of that is you can actually anonymise data. So at every stage, data will only be exposed to whoever, again, looking at legislation, is allowed to be looking at it. But from the perspective of like members, when we're setting priorities, we won't see the person's name or where they live or whatever. But we would go, oh, in this area, there is a spike of violence against women and girls. Here is a hotspot for graffiti, for example. And so you anonymise the data, but actually get the insights out of it. So that part is covered. And what was the second part of your question? It was all right. Well, I mean, data is going to be anonymised, and then the other thing that I was going to say is we can only collect data and have access to the data that residents allow us to have. So when it comes to GDPR, we need permission to store data, and there are processes to make sure that that's done in the best way.
Thank you, Councillor Yacoub. Any other member with any questions on this? I think, as you've outlined, one follows the other when it comes to these three reports, and so members can have confidence in this. And I think the point you've just made, I think, is critical. The data is great, but the analytics is going to be critical as part of this, but it all ties in as well. So, members, the recommendation for this is on page 262. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That is unanimous. Our final agenda item tonight is the supplementary report, which is the e-scooter hire trial scheme and the further extension. For this, I am handing over to Councillor McGovern.
Kerry, you thought you like the bins. You're going to love this. You're going to absolutely love this. First of all, it would be remiss of me not to thank Grant Taylor and Martin Howlett for the speed with which they have produced this report. Councillor Callaghan earlier referred to the speed with which this council can respond to situations when it needs to. I think, to be fair, local government generally has a bit of a reputation for responding in a sort of glacial manner. That's not true of Basildon Council. It's certainly not true of Basildon Council anymore, that's for sure. So thank you very much. Incredibly, since December 2020, Essex County Council has been participating in a trial of e-scooters for public hire. The trial was commissioned to establish the viability and, crucially, the safety of e-scooter usage. Given this trial has been going on for over 4 years now, it may have been reasonable to expect Essex County Council to give us a bit more than a fortnight in order to decide if Basildon wanted to continue to participate. In reality, it wasn't even a fortnight, it was less than a week or just under. But it didn't. And that speaks volumes about how Basildon is treated by Essex County Council generally. But I'm delighted to be able to announce tonight we will be telling Essex County Council where they can shove their e-scooters. As of the end of May, we will no longer see them scattered across our pavements, often creating a serious safety issue. We will no longer see our older residents being terrorised by scooters. And we should think ourselves very lucky, actually. We haven't experienced a tragedy as a result of this. Certainly been a few near misses, shall we say. We will no longer see youngsters, and I mean youngsters, causing havoc even though they're not old enough to be riding these things, and often riding them more than one person at a time on one particular scooter, risking their own safety, and not just their own safety, but the safety of others. Let's not forget this trial was supposed to last a year, but this has since been extended 3 times. Why? Why? You know, I genuinely don't understand. In many ways, it's a shame that this trial has caused the issues it has, and because I apologise to those residents that use the scooters in a reasonable and responsible manner, because many do, and there's no getting away from that. But those that should be apologising, and obviously won't, are the significant minority who have caused carnage. And we've all seen it in terms of emails, phone calls from residents, when we knock on doors. After the bids, it's one of the issues that comes up time and time again. So all I would say, just to conclude, and I'm happy to answer questions if there are any, unfortunately this particular time in Basildon is definitely not good. I know that Councillor Kerry Smith will be quietly pleased by this decision. Yeah, no, that was a bit slightly ironic there, Kel. But Kerry, here's one for you. Consider this as the first step towards full bus exit. Let's make Basildon great again.
Absolutely.
Councillor McGowan. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just start off with a question? Aidan, your mic's still on. Oh, sorry, that's not a question. Because I've not seen this supplementary, because I print off my agenda. I like supplementary. So the vote tonight is to say, end of May, no more scooters. Thank you. Right, I shall carry on. When this nutty idea come out, I spoke to Grant Taylor, and this was something the then government was trialling because of COVID. We didn't want vulnerable people to have to share vehicles, so we gradually had to take it on the chin from Essex, this scooter trial. And that officer sitting behind Grant, not Martin Hewitt, the younger gentleman, him and his colleague, they was doing a trial of those scooters outside the Basildon Centre, and I made them two put on an helmet because they wanted me to get on a scooter. Went, no way, no way. It wouldn't have been a good photo op, Mr. Chairman, because you'd have had a bit of a crater there. We might be on European time with that sundial out there, so you definitely wouldn't want to do that. I had a bit of fun on council pay, and good luck to them. But they've been a complete and utter menace. One thing Councillor McGowan could spend the whole evening talking about the faults, is they're commonly used by drug dealers. If my colleague Mo Larkin was here, one time she was doing the books one evening, and someone had got one of those illegal scooters and painted them up the other colour, orange, about their tyres, and it was like, get out of here. So it's a great start forward. These horrible, rotten scooters are going. The first thing that really made me concerned, I was visiting my late mother when she was still here. So you know the Ashlings roundabout? Saturday evening, twilight, this kid was going the wrong way round the roundabout on a scooter. I could have killed him. Physically killed him. A kid. I could have counselled look anyone's parents in the eye and say, I'm ever so sorry, but I killed your kid because he was going the wrong way round a roundabout. Twilight on a Saturday evening. Lucky I have a little Fiesta with a small engine, because I think if I had a 1.6, 1.8, I could have been talking about something very tragic tonight. We have residents that are blind. Mr. Chairman, you will know about that wonderful place in my ward, the Papworth Trust, for people with visibility disabilities. And they're coming out of Basildon train station or using the bus. And I really admire those people with visual disabilities being so independent and leading their life. Where do you try a guide dog with these rotten scooters dumped on the pavement? They're heavy. I had one dumped outside my house. I don't need a gym kit. I should have nicked that and kept it in the garden. I'd be like Arnold Schwarzenegger after a week picking that thing up. Horrible things. I just sort of got it up and threw it on the green so the kids going to school wouldn't trip over it. But there have been a complete nutty idea. I have fought this as well at county. Councillor McGowan was there with me. The Liberals from Colchester and Chelmsford like the idea of them. Let them have them. Let them trip over them. That's absolutely fine. And just to conclude, these scooters are meant to be used on the highway. But Basildon residents know you wouldn't want anyone with that death trap on a public highway, even if ridden by a proficient user, because of the disgusting state of our roads. It's absolutely unacceptable, but that's a different place and a different debate. And when we get Baz exit, we won't be graffitiing our highways, we'll be fixing them. One last question. That motion I tabled that was successful here, the second point of my letter was to ask Essex Police to have a purge and start crushing them. Have we had an update from the police, please, on the illegal ones?
So no is the answer to that. I think I'll allow Councillor McGarren to come back in a moment. I think from my point of view, what I would say is on Saturday I was knocking on doors in St Martin's around the Gloucester Park area. This came up time and time and time again, like literally every door. This came up as a problem and as an issue where people, even though for a lot of the people living on that estate, they perhaps work at the hospital and the NHS, and they thought they were good ideas in terms of using them to get up and down Nethermain to the hospital, they can't walk their kids outside their front door because of people coming off of Gloucester Park into the housing estate at all hours. There is definitely issues around criminality and criminal behaviour going on with them. That is, as far as residents are concerned, indisputable. And I think, you know, I take Councillor McGowan's point. I think it's very odd that you just keep extending a trial. I'd love to know how that gets around procurement rules, if I'm honest. And you can just keep extending a trial for 12 months at a time. But the truth is, as things stand at the moment, in regards to sustainable transport, the County Council has a huge amount of influence and power over our borough on sustainable transport, and they have not properly managed this process. There isn't a proper hub at the train station or at the hospital or whatever it is to be able to properly store these and dock these e-scooters. In 5 years, why not? Why has that never been something that they've properly invested time, effort and money into? We've not exactly been shy about coming forward and telling people that these have been major issues. They've chosen not to bother to do it, and I think someone has to put, you know, a line in the sand. And if these numbers are, you know, true in terms of the ridership, and we're looking at, you know, 800,000 rides since December 2020, that's going to be a big hit to the guys, this DOT or whoever it is that's running it. So perhaps they'll reflect on what went wrong in Basildon, and they'll think again about what they do in the future. Just want to come back, yeah.
I think, in fairness, Mr. Chairman, some retailers are very lazy about the legalities when selling these scooters, you know, the non-trial ones. And I wouldn't want anyone caught. The vehicle should be seized, no doubt about that. But if you are caught riding them, it is the same as joyriding. You're not insured. So I wouldn't want anyone thinking they're doing a smart thing, buying an illegal one from certain stores on the Pips Hill retail park, because you can legally buy them, but if you use them on the public highway, it's as good as joyriding when it comes to the offence and the punishment. So I think once May comes along and we get rid of these awful trial scooters, that we put something on the council social media that on all public spaces, scooters are not allowed. And once the trial finishes, that's it. Because we wouldn't want to see any resident of this borough being prosecuted for joyriding. They could be a Amazon delivery driver, and we wouldn't want to see them lose their job.
I think there's definitely an education piece that needs to be done. Our head of comms is sat at the back listening, so that is something that can be picked up as well. Do you want to come back in, Councillor McGowan?
Yeah, I'm delighted to. Yeah, I think most of the points have been covered. I think what Councillor Callett, do you want Councillor Baggett to come in first?
Sorry, I didn't call Councillor Baggett.
I did want to...
Councillor Baggett.
Thank you, Chairman. That's really appreciated, because on this, I think you got it wrong. We were talking about data and the importance of data earlier, and how important it is that we use data to drive our decision making. And yet, in the debate that you've had so far, there's a conflation between those people that use scooters in a criminal manner and those people that use them responsibly. There's been a conflation between the fact that The people who use them in a criminal manner probably aren't actually using the trial vehicles in the first place, because we know that there are the opportunity to go and use scooters which are not part of the trial, which are a different colour, they're different, you know, used differently. When you look at the data on page 12, e-scooters make it easier to travel around Basildon. It doesn't do it in percentages, unfortunately, but 88 out of a total of just over 100 agreed that it was easier to use them. The benefits of the scooters outweigh any issues they create. 71 out of 110, so that's roughly 70%. A safe mode of transport, 66 agreed out of just over 100, that's again 66%. E-scooters led me to consider changing how I usually travel, 60 out of roughly 100, so that's 50%. Rental e-scooters should be withdrawn, 78 disagree out of 120, so that's a pretty significant amount. Feeling towards e-scooters operating in Essex, positive or very positive, 78 out of 88. So all the data there is saying that people are changing the way they work, they think they're safe transport, that they shouldn't be withdrawn, and that they're positive about them. And yet we've heard, and I understand that what you're saying, because you're quite right, there are people using them for criminal methods, but people can go and buy a quad bike and use it for in a criminal manner. Are we going to then start to say, let's ban all quad bikes in the borough? People use cars. We've seen cars used in terrorism. Are we going to write cars off now and say, let's ban all car travel in Basildon? I don't think we are, because we're going down a silly route. And this is a silly route. The other concern I have is the fact that, and I've got I'm almost going to get a loyalty bonus at Basildon Hospital, but I've spent a little bit of time in Basildon. That gives you an opportunity to speak to the staff. A high amount of nurses currently use scooters to get to Basildon. They work antisocial shifts that wherever they live don't necessarily mean they use public transport. They're going at all sorts of times of day and night and in different weather. And a lot of them are very reliant upon they sing the praises of the scooter system and the fact they can get into work safely, come home from work safely, and this is disenfranchising potentially a workforce that we value. So I think you've got it wrong here. I think that Councillor Callaghan's point was very well made. I think what should be done is we should have more control about how the trial is run, and we should have more hands-on management about how the trial is run, what we expect and everything else, so that we can actually control the data and we can control what we're seeing, and we can actually set the parameters for what we'd expect from a successful e-scooter system. But just to say, no, let's get rid of it, I think is the wrong decision to make. Sorry.
The Leader of the Opposition talks about data. If I had a 1.6, 1.8 litre engine or bigger, could have killed a child because he was allowed to use that scooter, the trial one, wrong way, round a roundabout at twilight. To me, that's the data that matters. And I thank to God I didn't kill that child. The pavements are for pedestrians. And I understand why these e-scooters use the roads. Let's give the pedestrians back to the people, pavements back to the pedestrians and the people, and make sure we don't have a tragedy that in this borough that other boroughs have seen. Very briefly, ITV done a special documentary about this, and an old gentleman who was disabled using a mobility scooter. One was laying across the road, dumped. He tried to get up and move it. He fell out of his scooter into the coming traffic way, and the man is dead. That's the dangers of these. One person dies or seriously injured. That's what does it for me.
I'm going to bring Councillor McGowan in to wind up. I would just say, I'd say two things in response to the Leader of the Opposition. I would say, number one, it is absolutely a criminal offence to use a car for a terrorist act. So let's just be clear about that. That is the case. And number two, I think he was advocating for Baz exit, because he was advocating for us to have the powers and the controls over the coordination of these that we simply do not have in a two-tier system where the county council is responsible for our roads and our pavements. Councillor McGowan.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Baggott, for your contribution. You talked about data conflation. I don't really know where to start with that. But I'll tell you where I will start. This was a classic Essex County Council consultation. Just over 100 responses. Just over 100 responses. We're really going to make a decision based on just over 100 responses. And also, you know, when we do our consultations, we get a bit more than 100, don't we? So, you know, and also, you know, talking about data, when you did your waste consultation, and the results came in, you ignored it. So, data conflation, yeah, maybe. You talk about people behaving in a criminal manner. There is an element of that. But for me, the bigger problem is people behaving in an irresponsible manner, just bunging the scooters willy-nilly. And as we've said, you know, we've got you know, people with visual impairment, you know, it's a serious issue. We've got disabled people. It's a serious issue. Even just after dark in some of our less well-lit areas, because let's face it, Essex County Council aren't pulling up many trees in that area either, it's an issue. So, you know, over 100 people bothered to respond to the Essex County Council consultation. How many people have we spoken to about it? Hundreds and hundreds. And it comes up time and time again. And it comes up time and time again in a negative manner. Now, no offence, you don't have them in Billericay. You're lucky. So we're getting rid of them now. Like I say, Councillor Callaghan makes a really good point. Again, it's symptomatic of how we are treated by Essex County Council, because we've raised this issue with them and they've ignored it. They've said, well, it works here, it works there, just crack on. Yeah. You know, we don't care. And in terms of proper hubs, if work had been done on that, and maybe we would have a different situation, maybe. There are other issues as well, but maybe we would. And maybe in the future, with the change of technology, and maybe when it's down to us to oversee how this is administered and whether it is safe and responsible, then maybe we can do it in the future. But at the moment, it is not working. It is not safe. You know, you talk about quad bikes. Yeah, they're a massive issue. But you know what? Even Essex County Council isn't hiring out quad bikes. Now, if you suggest it to them, they might think it's a good idea, but thank God they haven't done it so far. So, you know, look at Basildon, look at Pitsea, and see the reality of the situation. And don't get too tied up with 100 responses to a consultation that wasn't worth having. You know, I am absolutely convinced I'm on the right side of this argument, and unfortunately, Councillor Baggott, you're on the wrong side. And go and knock on doors in Basildon and Pitsea, Leindon, and you will soon find out the case. The reason we're doing this is to keep our residents safe. Simple as that.
And with that, the recommendation is on page 4 of the supplementary agenda. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you all. Our next meeting is in a couple of weeks' time. We shall see you all then. Thank you.